Happy pre-approval day! This video is coming to you because it is officially time to start house hunting. But before we do that, I want to go through a couple of things and explain how this process is going to work. So our goal is to make this an exceptional experience for you. I want it to be stress-free, enjoyable, and not a nightmare like you've heard about others having, okay? So between myself and my team, we have over 100 years in the mortgage industry, okay? That much experience, we've seen a lot, we've done a lot, we know what to avoid and what to expect, okay? So in this video, what we're going to do is we're gonna walk you through that home buying process. We're also gonna teach you how we shop your rate, we structure your loan, and are able to save you as much money as possible. And again, we're gonna try and eliminate all that stress. We're gonna do a lot of upfront work to avoid those firefights at the end, all right? So let's dive in. First things first, let's meet my amazing team. Let's start with this. If we haven't had a chance to actually talk yet, so my name is Sidney. I'm gonna be the captain of this ship, also known as your originator. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna oversee the process. I'm gonna answer any questions that you have. I'm gonna make sure that your file is running smoothly, and I'm gonna be there for you every step of the way. A little bit about me. I'm a lifelong equestrian, a third-generation mortgage banker, and a very avid golfer. So I'm lucky enough to breed and show world-class reining horses. It's a really big passion of mine. So if you're into the horse industry or if you love horses, please take the time to chat with me about it because I love it. Next up, I'm so incredibly lucky to work next to my mom, Miss Karr. She has taught me most of what I know. Luckily, she passed down all of her really good qualities to me. So really lucky to work alongside her. We're able to brainstorm, we're able to problem solve, we're able to bounce ideas off each other and make sure that each file is taken care of in its own specific way. She's been doing this a while. I won't tell you how long because she doesn't like me to say that, but I do joke with her that our NMLS license number is 1. So if you ever see her around, remind her of that. Up next, we have Miss Jennifer Prysock. Jen's an invaluable part of our team. So what Jen does is she's going to walk you through the application process. She's going to help structure your file. She's going to help go over your numbers, get you all pre-qualified to make sure that when you do go under contract that we're going to get to that closing table. We're going to get to that finish line, okay? Jen's been in the business almost a decade. She was an originator that we were lucky enough to get on our team, and she's also a credit repair expert. So if you have any questions about your credit, maybe it's fine for now, but you want to do some tweaking in the future, or if you just want to know more about credit, please ask her those questions. She's amazing at it, and she loves to talk about it. Once you go under contract, you're going to meet Miss Sarah Sparkles. Sarah is our contract to close concierge. So Sarah has also been in the mortgage space for almost a decade now, I guess a little over a decade now. And she is going to handhold you once you go under contract. She's going to be your liaison through the process. So what she's going to do, she's going to make sure that your file's running smoothly. She's going to be that communication between you and the processor and the underwriter and the closer. And she puts everything in a nice little bow to keep things stress-free. She's incredible. She loves to talk to people and help them, so please reach out to her if you have any questions. She also is our disclosure specialist. So what we send you during the process is fun little cutesy. It has all the information you need, but it has all of the numbers on it. What she's gonna send you is all of the government blah blah they make us send you, okay? It's not very fun. Luckily it's e-signatures, so it's not too hard to follow, and she's gonna help send those out and walk you through how to do that as well. So please reach out to her once you're under contract for any questions. She's incredible, and I know you're gonna love working with her. Next up, we have Miss Stacy. Stacy Aslan is our processor. So for those of you that don't know what a processor is, basically they're the back end. They do all of the paperwork. They make sure your file is perfect for the underwriter. They make notes for them. They make sure that everything is in order and that it makes sense and that we have all the documentation that we need to get your file approved. She orders all of your verifications. She's going to order your appraisal. She's going to order your title work. She's going to work with that title company to make sure that everything is in line, okay? More than likely, you're probably not going to get to talk to Stacy. She does all the behind the scenes work, so we need her staying in your file. But she has been in the mortgage business almost as long as Mom has. So don't tell her I told you that because she doesn't like when I tell people that either. But her experience is incredible. She was also in the closing aspect for a very long time. So she works really closely with our closers. What our closers do is they prep your final numbers, they prep your final documents, they make sure everything's in order. So that way on closing day, all you have to do is sign a few papers and get your keys, okay? We also have Miss Sarah Kelly. Sarah's incredible. So Sarah does a lot. She does a lot more than just post-closing for us. She helps us with our marketing. If anything, if you need anything, flyers, questions, she's always there. One thing that Sarah really focuses on, though, is that she's going to hold your hand post-closing, okay? If this is going to be a primary residence for you, there's a few steps that you have to take once we sign those papers to make sure that we get your driver's license changed, your homestead exemption filed. You're also going to have new servicers, and we'll go over that term here in a little bit. She's going to help walk you through all of that. She's going to be able to answer questions. You can send her papers that, maybe you don't know what it means. She's going to be able to help you through that. She is there, especially that first 60, 90 days after your closing, to make sure that everything runs smoothly and all of your questions are answered. All right, so let's dive into the home buying process, okay? So here's the flow of how everything's going to work, right? Right now we're doing your pre-approval. What that means is that you have buying power. You get to now go shop for your home, all right? You get to go do the fun stuff, all right? What we're gonna be doing during that time is we're gonna be doing as much right now, gathering documentation, getting your file through the automated system, doing all of the things that we have to do to make sure that we're gonna get you to the closing table once you go under contract. So when you go under contract, there's a lot of information coming at you. It's really fast. It comes at you super fast. And we want to make sure that we are not going to add to all of that busyness that you have. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a lot up front to make sure that once you go under contract, you kind of know what to expect going forward. Once you go under contract, we begin the actual loan process, okay? Because we have the process of qualifying you as a client, and then we have the process of qualifying the home. So those two things have to coincide once you go under contract. So what happens is once you go under contract, we're going to set up a meeting to go over numbers, shop rates, make sure you're comfortable with the payments, make sure everything looks the way that you expect it to. Once we lock in that rate, like I said, Miss Sarah's going to send you those disclosures. You're going to e-sign those disclosures. Then once you do that, Sarah's going to get your file to Miss Stacy. Stacy's going to order your appraisal. The only thing that we will ever ask you to pay up front before closing as your lender is going to be your appraisal. Apparently appraisers want to get paid for their job. I don't know, it's crazy talk. So they require us to pay them before they go out to the property. So you'll get an email from delivery@regora.com, okay? That is our appraisal management company. What they do is they schedule the appraisers, they manage their time frames, they also do a qualified review to make sure that when the appraisal comes in, it's accurate. So when you get to that point, we've got your disclosure signed, be looking for that email. Again, delivery@regora.com, because that's the payment link. We cannot order your appraisal until you use that link and pay for that appraisal. All right. Once that happens, Stacy's going to get your file to our underwriter. She's going to tie it with nice little pretty bows, okay? The underwriter is going to review the file. They're going to approve it. They're going to send it back to us, and they're going to say, hey, everything looks great. Here's a couple of questions that I had. Here's a couple of documents that I need, and of course, need the appraisal, need, title work, survey, all the stuff that finishes the file. Once we have all those things gathered up, we are going to submit your file back to the underwriter for a clear to close, okay? So I don't know if you can see under my face right here, but once we have that clear to close, we issue what's called a closing disclosure. That closing disclosure has to be signed 3 days prior to closing per government guidelines. That's not a me rule, that's nationwide, everyone has to do that, okay? So once we have that clear to close, our closer is going to work closely with the title company. They're going to get that closing disclosure put together for you so we can e-sign that. Once we e-sign that, then we're going to get all of your numbers put together, get your closing scheduled, and then we're going to head to the closing table. So it's kind of a brief overview of how the process works. All right, so next up, let me see if I can get this going here. All right. What I want you to do, so you received, hopefully by now, you might not have quite received it in the mail. Sometimes it takes a day or two, but we sent you a home buyer packet. That packet, it's everything, okay? It has things that you like about homes that you've seen, things that you didn't like about those homes, things that you have questions over. It also breaks down the mortgage process again, please utilize this tool. Write your questions down. If you're anything like me, you're sitting up at 10 o'clock at night thinking about all the things that you wished you would have asked or said or done that prior day. So when that happens, write those down in that booklet that we gave you. Keep it beside your bed, keep it on your desk, whatever makes the most sense for you. So that way, whenever we can reconnect the next day, when we're both not in bed, right? Then we can reconnect and I can answer those questions. All right. I want you to please screenshot this slide, all right? These are mortgage terminology words. Again, I don't know everything about pottery. I don't know all the terminology with pottery. That's not my world, okay? Mortgage is my world, and I'm good at it. So all of these words come very naturally to me, and they'll also come really naturally to my team. We've been doing this a long time. However, they don't always translate into the real world. So I want you to have this slide and the next one. I'll pause on it too. And I want you to screenshot those, save them to your phone, take a picture of them, take time to review them before our pre-approval consultation, because that way I can answer any questions you have about any of this mortgage terminology. Sometimes it can get lost in translation, right? So I want to make sure that you feel confident and comfortable whenever we have our pre-approval consultation to know exactly what we're talking about and why we're asking the questions we're asking. Okay, so there's screen 1. Here comes screen 2. Please, please, please screenshot this one as well, all right? Take a second, I'll give you time. All right, all good? Sweet. Okay, one thing that I am so big on, okay, this is so important to me, and it's important to my agents, it's important to my clients, and it's especially important to sellers and listing agents. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, okay? What that means for us is during this pre-approval stage, we want to make sure that everyone has expectations, everyone knows what to expect from the process. We want that listing agent to know that we've already reviewed your documents. We've already gone over numbers on this particular property. There won't be any surprises from the lending side through this transaction, okay? And so what that does is it's able to strengthen your offer, okay? We want to be involved in your offer process, because what that does is it gives the listing agent and that seller confidence to know that when they accept your offer, things are going to go smoothly. We want to be copied on those correspondence. I'm going to personally reach out to that listing agent when you make an offer and say, hey, guess what? My clients are so ready to go. We've already gone over numbers. I've already sent them their approval letter, and I already have all their documentation gathered up. So guess what? Let's rock and roll. We can get this thing closed quick, stress-free. Everyone will be happy. All right? Next thing, big question I always get asked, right? How do the rates work? How do I know I'm getting the best deal? Such a valid question. I wish everyone asked that question every day. So one thing that my whole team, we're very big on this. We want us to be super transparent in where the market is and where pricing is, okay? So here's an example. I'm gonna go through this really quickly. So you can see kind of this candlestick effect. Shockingly, all right, this is the mortgage bond market over a 24-hour period. So you can see all the green and red candlesticks, all right? Now, the thing that's a little bit confusing is that green candlesticks are good, red candlesticks are bad. That's pretty simple to understand. What's a little confusing is when the chart goes up, that means rates are actually going down, okay? So when we see upticks and those bond markets increasing, that means rates are slightly going down. We monitor these. Obviously, things change minute to minute, hour to hour. We're not gonna know what your rate's gonna be until you're under contract. Couple of reasons why. Number one, rates are property specific, okay? So until we have an exact address of what you're purchasing, then we can't lock in the interest rate. They're also time frame specific, okay? Normal locks are 30-day locks because that's when normal closings happen, okay? But until we have a contract, we don't know that time frame. We don't know that property address. So you can see how much rates change day to day, hour to hour. We don't know what that's gonna look like 2 weeks from now. We don't know what that's gonna look like 2 months from now. We don't know what it's gonna look like 6 months from now. So when we're working through your pre-approval, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take today's rates. We're gonna use what we could lock in today. Take a conservative approach to those taxes, the insurance, all of that goes towards your total payment, okay? We're in Texas, we don't have state income tax. What that means is that our property taxes are higher than almost any other state. So when you're looking at payments, especially if you're going to include your taxes and insurance in your monthly payment, which you have to do if you're putting less than 20% down, okay? That's going to make your taxes and insurance alone are going to make up a third of your payment. So as you can imagine, you're going to have a big impact depending on your taxes property to property. But what we do to make sure that you're confident and comfortable, when we're running numbers for you, we're going to use an average interest rate for that week. We're going to use a conservative approach to taxes and insurance, especially for the area that you're shopping in. That way you can get a general idea of what that payment's going to look like. If not, it might be a little bit higher than what you're actually going to see. We want to do that so that you don't have sticker shock. The worst thing in the world is you find the most beautiful home, your dream home, you go under contract, you get the numbers back, and all of a sudden the payment's $200, $300, $500 higher than what you were expecting. Dreams crushed. I'm not doing that to you. Wouldn't do that to anybody. That is sad, and we don't run that way. So what we're going to do, average daily interest rate, conservative taxes, conservative insurance, so you have a really good general idea of what that payment's going to look like. What we're going to do once you find that home, before you go under contract, we'll run numbers on that specific property as well, so you'll know exactly what that's going to look like. So what happens whenever we're marketing these rates and we're watching these rates? We get what's called a rate stack. So we have over 30 different banks and investors that we shop every single day. Luckily, we have that option, right? We're able to shop. We're not locked into just one pricing stack. So what happens whenever we start shopping for your interest rate is that we are able to pull all of the best rates from all of the best investors for that particular day, for your particular scenario, and put it in a nice little rate sheet like this, okay? So one thing that we want to go over is I'm really big on long-term goals. We never know what's going to happen in the future, right? We can all have plans. Those might fly out the window tomorrow, but it's nice to have a plan going forward. So here's a prime example of a rate sheet. This is what we see when we're shopping your interest rate, okay? So when we're looking at this rate sheet, you'll see on the right-hand side over here, okay? You see those red X's? What that means is that that rate is not available because it is too expensive for qualified mortgage guidelines. And what qualified mortgage guidelines are regulations that the government put in place to say when mortgages are too expensive for a client, okay? So those first four rates, they're not even available. We can't even get there. They don't fit into the government mold. But if you look over on the left-hand side over here, that's your interest rate, okay? That's what the rate is going to be. That monthly payment is going to be based on that rate. Then you're going to see in the next column, that's your lock period. Those 30-day locks, again, this is not your scenario, right? This is just a general rate sheet so we can kind of talk about how they work. Then next to that, you're going to see that buy down, that discount point. What does it cost to get to that rate? So you'll see at the 6.75, that rate is costing $884. If you go to 6.875, you'll actually get $524 towards your closing cost, okay? So what I want to do is kind of give you math, okay? I love math. Math is always the same. So let's take the 5.75% interest rate here. The cost to get to 5.75 is $14,000, okay? Makes your principal and interest payment $23.34. Now, let's flip that. Let's say we don't want to buy down that rate as much. We're going to take that 6.75% interest rate. The cost on that's only $844. So your new principal and interest payment on that is $25.94. So at what point do you break even on that $14,000 that you just invested? Well, here's the math. Your principal and interest difference between the two payments is $260. Okay? The cost difference between the two rates is $13,120. And then what we do is we take that $13,120 divided by your monthly savings of $260, and that equals your months that it would take to recoup your investment of 50.462. Basically, what that equates to is you would have to hold this particular mortgage without selling, without refinancing, without changing anything for 51 months to recoup your investment, okay? maybe that makes sense for you. And it very well could. If you're going to be in this home for a very long time, it could absolutely make sense for you. Doesn't mean that that's our best option. That's what our pre-approval consultation is going to be about when we talk later, okay? All right. So, next thing. We're kind of in a rate environment right now where people are still a little scared, okay? They're still going, oh my goodness, rates are still high. Well, actually, they're about 1.5 points lower than we were 18 months ago. So they are coming back down. What happened in 2020 and 2021 was pretty telling of what happens when rates drop drastically quickly, okay? So when rates go down quickly, what happens is more buyers flood the market. And then what happens then is the demand increases, which increases housing prices. And then you see that housing price skyrocket. So I took this scenario from a client I helped back in 2019 because I thought it was a beautiful example of why waiting can actually cost you more money, and waiting on that perfect rate can cost you more money. So back in 2019, I helped this client, cute little couple, first-time home buyers. They purchased their home for $400,000. They put 5% down. And back at that time, rates were not too much lower than they are right now. So they were at a 5.75% interest rate. Put their monthly payment, we'll use rough numbers, at about $3,100 a month. Okay. Well, that same home 2 years later in 2021 was valued at over $520,000. Okay. So you take that same 5% down, they're actually having to put more money down, because now we have $120,000 more in sales price. Yes, they got that 2.875% interest rate, which is great, but your payment's still $120 more a month than it would have been if you would have bought at the higher rate at the lower cost, okay? So what actually happened is the people that bought in 2019, they won, because guess what happened then? Not only did their equity increase over $120,000 in a 2-year period, but they were able to refi, get that rate down to the same 2.875, and then they dropped their monthly payment almost $600 a month and really saved over $700 a month than if they would have waited to buy in 2021. So it kind of goes back to that old cliche additive of marry the house and date the rate. It's so true. You can never change the price you pay for a home, okay? That number is that number. That's never going to change. What you can change is your interest rate. So I want you to really focus on where can you build wealth? Where can you truly start that generational wealth process and make the smartest investment possible? Typically, I'm going to tell you, the math doesn't math on waiting. So just a little example there of why it's so important to really set your budget and start trying to build that wealth and start trying to gain that equity, because it's going to make such a difference in the future. Okay, so now that I've gone through all of the mortgage blah blah and all of the reasons why, here's something that's so important to me. Like I said, I'm a 3rd generation mortgage banker, okay? This is bred into me. I don't know how to do anything else, and luckily I absolutely love it. But one thing that especially Mom and I are so involved in is we have clients for generations. We want to be your lender for generations. We want to help you, your kids' kids. We have actually had 2 families where we did 4 generations of home buying processes with their families, and that's such a cool experience. And one thing that we really try and strive for is to have that experience. And the reason we get those repeat clients and the reason that we have that trust is because you're not a transaction, okay? Our clients are our clients for life. We monitor your mortgage. We monitor rate drops. We have stay in touch programs. You're going to hear from me regularly after this. Not too regularly. Don't worry, I'm not going to blow up your phone. But you're still going to hear from me. I want to check in with you. I want to see how your family's doing, okay? I want to see how life's treating you. I want to do that annual review with your mortgage. We also have what's called a client care club. So what that means is that if you have any questions, or you say you hit a hiccup, or you have anything that you need, we're here for you. From post-closing and beyond, okay? And that way you're confident in your mortgage going forward. We can also talk about, hey, life happens. What do I do now? I don't know. Let's make a game plan together. So I really, really want you to keep our phone numbers, keep our emails. And like I said, you're going to hear from me. You're not going to get away that easy. All right. So that's going to be one of the advantages of working with my team is you're not a number. You're a family. You're a person. You're important to us and you matter. All right. So now that I've inundated you with all of the mortgage knowledge and all of the all of the fun things of how this process is going to work, next step is going to be to set up your consultation with me. And in that consultation, we're going to go over numbers for your specific scenario. We're going to talk about budget. We're going to go through what you're qualified for, where your comfort is in a monthly payment. We're going to go through what the rates are today and what you can estimate that payment to be. So when you're done with this video, I want you to go to connectwiththekarrs.com, scroll down a little, click Speak with Sidney. It'll direct you and you'll have an option to click pre-approval consultation. Click that, schedule a time that works well for you. If you need an after hours appointment, let us know. We can accommodate that with a little bit of heads up. So we'll get you taken care of there. I am so incredibly excited to work with you through this process. I really hope that you have a world-class experience, and I'm here. I'm here throughout the whole process. So can't wait to talk to you soon. Let's dive into those numbers, and happy house hunting. We'll talk soon.